This video may look like a group of friends just going out to get takeout. But trust me when I say something much more disturbing is at play. This is the devastating case of Mary Collins, a 20-year-old girl who disappeared in the early days of the COVID lockdowns. Now, due to COVID, her case didn't really get the media attention it deserves. But I do warn you, the brutality of what happened to her is shocking. On the 28th of March 2020, Mary headed out the door and got into an Uber to head to a friend's house. Her friend's name was Levi Pham, this guy, and he was a high school friend of hers and a former boyfriend. Mary was also going to meet his now girlfriend, Kelly Lavery, this girl. Now, Mary was special needs and she actually had a syndrome that impaired her ability to move around, but she was lonely. And so when Lavi and Kelly asked her to go hang out with them, she thought they were just being friendly. Now, it's important to note that when she got there was another guy present. This guy, James Solorano. Now, all of them sort of went out to go get sushi, and that was the video you saw posted by Levy. You can see them walking into his apartment. You can see them all walking to the apartment, but sadly Mary would never walk out. Now, Mary's family knew she'd gone out to meet some friends. They were immediately concerned when they did not hear from her. They sent her multiple messages and called her a few times. And because of her special needs, they were concerned. Now, Mary actually lived with her grandmother, Mia Alderman. And when Mary didn't come home, Mia went straight to Levy's apartment and banged on his door. Now, the couple, Kelly and Levy, they opened the door and told Mia that Mary had left after they had all eaten sushi. But that did not make sense to Mia. She knew that Mary would have needed help getting home. So Mia went straight to the police and filed a missing person report. Now, due to the circumstances around the case, the missing persons unit were quite slow to respond. But Mia knew that Mary was still in that apartment, and so she continued to turn up at Levy's door. At one stage, the couple even let her in to let her search the apartment, but they did not let her go into the back rooms. All they let her do was do a quick scan. But Mia was simply convinced. It got so bad that the missing person unit actually told Mia that she had to stop harassing Levy and Kelly, that they were doing their own investigation. After some time, the case finally gets the break it so desperately needed. Uploading part 2 now.
When 20-year-old Mary Collins disappears, her whole family immediately fears the worst.
Now, Mary had plans to meet up with her former boyfriend and high school friend, Levi Pham. He's also meeting his new girlfriend, Kelly Lavery. You can see them all pictured in this video that he posted to Facebook. So when Mary goes missing, her family checks her social media, and what they discover is that these two, they've been bullying her online. They've left her cruel messages saying no one likes her and other really mean things. Now, by this point, the police have been notified of her disappearance, but Mia, Mary's grandmother, is convinced that she's still in Levy's apartment. The police actually do a search of his apartment and they find nothing. And so they don't really push forward with the case. So it turns out that this guy, James Solorano, was present at the time of Mary's disappearance, and he boasted to a friend exactly what the trio had done to her. I won't share all of it because it's horrifying, but they stabbed her 133 times. They put a leash around her neck and tortured her. When she eventually passed away, they covered her body in detergent and cinnamon to mask the smell. They then rolled her up in plastic and stuffed her in a mattress. James actually told his friend they were planning to incinerate that mattress as soon as they got the opportunity to do so. Now, that friend was rightfully horrified. He immediately went to the police and told them what happened. They did another search of Levy's apartment, and this time they ripped open the mattress. Just as they were told, there they found the body of 20-year-old Mary Collins. Her family were completely devastated. Now, all three were arrested. Their ringleader, Kelly Lavery, took a plea deal and was sentenced to 20 to 30 years in prison. For more 7 Sin crime stories, you can hit that plus button.
Let's talk about what happened to Kira Jackson. Kira was 14 years old and she was living in Princeton, West Virginia. On Saturday, December 3rd, Kira was reported missing. She was last seen wearing white sweatpants and an Under Armour hoodie. Her personal journal was found at her school, and written in it was talking about how her stepfather molested her. Her stepfather is Roderick Dion Neal. Her stepfather was doing this for 3 years, and her mother did nothing about this. Her mother, Sarah Mullins, was known to bail out Roderick out of jail whenever he got into any kind of trouble. Kira's sister, Alana, had actually found Kira in the basement. When she found her, she was hung in the basement and her throat was slit open. At first, her sister just paused because she just didn't know what to do. I'm sure she was in a lot of shock. At first, the stepfather and mother tried to stop law enforcement from coming into the basement because they stated that they looked everywhere for her and they didn't really need to be checking the basement. It was reported that Kira was deceased in the basement the day that she was reported missing. There is actually a video surfacing online of the stepdad beating Kira, and I think it's the sister who is the one recording it. But the police ended up arresting him 24 hours after the video surfaced online, and the mom bailed him out. Unfortunately, there have been no arrests made for Kira's death. This is still a pretty fresh case, so if there is more information that comes out, hopefully there is, I will make a part 2.
This girl was unalived by her boyfriend as he recorded it on his cell phone. On May 27, 2016, 15-year-old Karen Perez disappeared from her school. When Karen did not come home from school that day, her parents immediately reported her missing to Houston police, and a search party was formed in hopes to find Karen. At the forefront of the search for Karen was her 15-year-old boyfriend, Jesus Campos Jr. After 3 days of unsuccessful searches, Jesus was driving around with his father when he calmly said, quote, "Just take me home because she is not alive," unquote. His father immediately drove him to Houston police and asked him to admit this to them. Of course, Jesus denied any knowledge of his girlfriend's disappearance. The only information he said that he did have was that he saw her a day before she disappeared at a taqueria. Soon after, a teenager contacted Texas EquiSearch to actually admit that he had been at the taqueria with both Jesus and Karen and 2 other teenagers on the day Karen disappeared. He also said that after leaving the taqueria, all of them went to an abandoned apartment complex across the street from South Houston High School. He said that him and the 2 other teenagers went back to school while Karen and Jesus stayed behind. After receiving this tip, police immediately went to this abandoned apartment complex where they unfortunately found the lifeless body of Karen. I'm putting a trigger warning here because this has to do with themes of SA, and then also just graphic depictions of unaliving. So if that's not for you, that's totally okay, I understand, but I am going to get into that part of the story now. So after police found the body of Karen, it was determined that she had been strangled to death and then stuffed in a cabinet underneath the sink. After this discovery, police immediately zoned in on Jesus. They obtained a search warrant for his cell phone, and what they found was extremely disturbing to even the most seasoned homicide detectives. On Jesus' phone, they found pictures of Karen as well as a video of her being SA'd and unalived by Jesus. In the video, Karen can be heard crying, asking Jesus not to SA her and that she did not want to die. Investigators also discovered conversations between Jesus and Karen. Jesus had ordered Karen to skip school with him, but once she told him that she could not skip school, he said that he would kill her if she didn't. Investigators also found that he had taken photos of her after she had already died. And it was also discovered that Jose sent these photos to at least 2 friends who failed to tell police, and in one reply from one of those friends, it said, quote, "Bros before hoes," unquote. Go to part 2. This is part 2 of Karen Perez. I am putting another trigger warning here. This does have to do with themes of SA and graphic depictions of death. If that is not for you, I totally understand, but I am going to get into it. In part 1, we learned that Karen Perez was strangled by her boyfriend, Jesus Campos Jr., then stuffed under a kitchen cabinet. Jesus also recorded the whole entire thing on his cell phone and sent pictures of her to his friends. So after police are finding all of this out, CCTV footage would show Jesus and Karen leaving the taqueria the day she disappeared hand in hand. And an employee would identify Jesus and say that shortly after the 2 left, he had actually come back alone and asked to borrow the phone so he could call his mom and ask her to come pick him up. Jesus had absolutely no motive and he wasn't willing to give over any information. During the trial, jurors and people of the court were shown very graphic images as well as the videos. Karen's mother spoke out about the photos that were shown and said that the one that haunted her the most was of Jesus stepping on Karen's face after she had been unalived. On November 6, 2018, Jesus was found guilty of the unaliving of Karen Perez, and he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, if you guys have any case suggestions, I actually have a suggestion form that you can fill out. It is linked on my page. I do not read through my comments, so I will have a hard time finding a case that you suggest. So please go to that case suggestion form for me so that I can actually see the cases that you want to hear.